one of the first stages in turboing our 1UZ is to make our own exhaust manifolds, so we can get all the exhaust gases into one place and onto a flange such that it'll feed the turbo from the turbine inlet. I don't really want to take the manifolds off our card because we're still using it, so I borrowed a laser cut manifold plate off a friend, and simply all I'm going to do is reverse engineer this. One manifold plate, a 6-inch and a 12-inch vernier and CAD, and all I'm going to do is put this into the CAD, get the shape of it, and then I can send off and get some laser cut. Now of course on these they are the same left and right on the car, it's just they go the other way on the top. They're a simple pattern that repeats itself, so to this side, to that side, and this is the opposite of that, so it's a relatively easy part to CAD up. So all I'm going to do now is sit here in the workshop on a quiet Sunday afternoon and get this CAD'ed, and then we can get them off. I'm actually going to make them out of thicker material. These ones here are 8mm. Now there's no reason to have them thin, that seems to offer no purpose except for a tiny bit of weight saving, which I think is it's not worth doing, so actually I'm going to do them probably out of 10 or 12mm. If I do them out of 12 I can always mill 2mm off if I decide to afterwards, after they've been welded, just to get the surface flat again. But if it's 8mm and it warps a couple of mil, then all of a sudden that's 6mm and that's starting to look too thin to me. So anyway, thicker plates will do the job better, I think, and there's no need to under-engineer this. If things like manifolds start cracking, that's a real pain. So why not just do it a little bit thicker in the first place. So anyway, we're going to get the CAD done, get this sorted, and that will be another part towards our turbo next. I hope you can see that. This is our finished manifold plate. There we are, we reverse engineered that. Done, we'll do the 2D drawing for that. Get this off to the laser cutters and we'll have some manifold plates. Get some of those made. Obviously in the engine bay, space is limited. This is our T4 flange on the turbo. So probably what we're going to do is to mount the turbo this way up, about here. Obviously turn the compressor out so it points a different direction. So the T4 flange is going to end up going pretty much where our remote filter is. This will give us enough room to get the dump pipe out and under itself and miss the front of the distributor here, which we still need to keep the standard ignition for now. And then that'll head off, dump pipe down, exiting where the other exhaust manifold was. So it's all a bit of a tight fit, as we'd expect it was going to be, but I think we'll be okay there. So exhaust manifold wise, for the right hand bank, we've got the 2 power steering pipes here which will move, and we'll be able to bring the manifold outlet here just into this area here where those 2 pipes are, turn it 90 degrees and put a flange here in front of the power steering pulley, so I want to keep the power steering, and then we can run a section across the front of the engine with a flexi in, and that'll feed into the what'll be the right hand side of the T4 flange. And for this side we were just going to bring a pipe at a slightly higher level than this manifold out here, turn that upwards, and again that will go onto the T4 manifold. And that should give us enough room in this area here where the aircon stuff used to be able to get the dump pipe out down under there. And we'll move this radiator hose so it's tight against the radiator here, because that's just where we don't want it. We'll move the remote filter and put that somewhere else, and I think that will be a lot of work, and that should enable us to do this. So this is the mock-up engine in the workshop, and you can see that we've started here. So we've got one of our laser cut flanges on the engine. This is the 1.5" internal diameter shed 40 pipe, which is 3mm wall, or just over 3mm, so it's nice and chunky. We've got a bend on here. This is 1.25" bend, and then we'll put runners on each of these out of the 1.25" shed 40. And you can see that if I press this against the engine here, we're using this as a mock-up, that we're just clearing the power steering pulley there, and that should allow us to just clear the chassis leg in the car as well. So this looks like the start of our first manifold, the right hand bank. So all we're going to do now is make these 3 runners, tack those in, and then we can put a bend on the front end here and a flange, and that's that side tacked together, and then we can do the other side.
Well, you've seen us tack the flange to the log, and now we have made each runner for each of the flanges, and we spent a lot of time getting these to fit very nicely, all 3 of them, from the log to the flange. And now we are going to tack all of these onto the flange, then we'll break the log off and we'll drill the 3 holes, and then we'll get to welding it. So we've tacked the 3 runners onto the flange now, and we've scribed around the inside of the holes so we can drill the holes out on the log. So now it's time to break the 2 welds on the bend, take the log off and go mill some holes. Be a log.
There's our log. You can see our 3 scribe holes there. So let's get on the milling machine and mill some holes together.
So here's our 3 holes in the log that we've done on the milling machine. They look very nice and perfect. And now it's time to tack this back onto the flange, and then we're going to tack a bend and a flange on this end, and then go and try it on the dummy engine. So we've got our log here with the 3 runners coming straight out into the log, passes the power steering pump, and then we've got the bend here that goes straight across the crossover pipe to the turbo, which is going to be here. So that's one manifold.
We're going to do this quickly because it's just started snowing. We've decided the turbo is going to go here, and we're going to keep the flange vertical, pointing rear over, so that should be easy enough. We need to datum this on our spare engine, and what we found is that with the turbo in this position is that we have a bolt here for the distributor, and if we go 1.5 inches straight down from that bolt, that lines up with the top inside bolt of our T4 flange, and we reckon by doing that, that will keep the turbo in the right place. So it's time to get out of the snow, get inside and mock up a plate on our dummy engine, and then we can start making the log manifold for the other side. Happy days.
So we started on the left hand bank of the turbo manifold, which is the bank that's going to hold the turbo off, and you've seen we've tried the turbo on the car, so we've made this little bracket and hung this turbo flange in space. So now you can see that this bank is going to come straight out into there to hold the turbo up, and this other bank from here is going to come straight across here, in at about 45, round, up and straight into there. And that's 2 turbo manifolds. Let's get welding.
Well, here's the start of our log manifold for this side. You saw us putting the bend in. That took some serious effort. This is like 3 and a bit mil wall, and I've got a very big 3D squared ratchet pipe bender, and I was hanging on it with both arms. Anyway, we got it done. So manifold looks nice there, fits nice. I've tried it on the car. We've got our runners, we've got our flange here, and I've tipped it back slightly just to get a bit more clearance for everything. So the thing to do now, this is in the position we talked about here, relative to the bolt for that distributor, and we can actually just stick the turbo on and see how things fit. This is the exciting bit. But there we go. Compressor's going to point forwards there. Where's my oil inlet? There's the oil inlet at the top on the case. Compressor points that way. Looks good. Right, next job, now that's in the right place in space, is we've got to make the pipe that comes out of here, down here and round, so we can link it up to the manifold on the other side. And that's going to be interesting. So obviously looking at the back, there's our other port, which is going to be for the right hand bank, the right hand port. So we'll bring a bend out of there, we'll come downwards and we'll bring it along towards the engine, keep it tight to the engine, keep our space there. Let's bring it on the front. So it'll come out, it'll come down here, and then we'll bring it out and round. And if we bring it out on about the same level as this one, then I can put a pipe straight across the front with a flexi in. Another flange here, about here, and that should see us good, I think, because we don't have this water pipe and stuff on the other engine. I moved it all. Right, more fab work. Because we've got this round pipe going into what is essentially a square hole on here, what I'm going to do is put a couple of cuts down here and then just open this up a bit using the hammer, and then when I weld this on, we'll tack it on, get it all in place, and then I'll use the oxyacetylene to heat up, same as this one, and I'll just bend that tube out so it's a much nicer fit, so we've got the round into square transition. And so I'll do the same on this. So I'll put a couple of cuts on it before I tack it on, because I can't get to it afterwards. We'll be good to go. So here we are, our 2 manifolds on. I've bolted the other half of the flanges on as well. This is our flexi that's going to go across the front, so all we've got to do is decide where we're going to put this, and about there looks about right, which is as near as it needs to be. We'll set it off to this side because of this engine pulley. So we'll just measure this up, cut some tube, and then we're getting there with this. So if that goes there, so I've just laid these in place, and you can see with the flanges there, with a straight pipe, there's the flexi and across to that side, and that starts to look like a set of manifolds to me. So the best thing to do is to tack all this in place on the engine, so we know the distances are all correct and the angles and everything else, because I've actually angled this out slightly, which means that it should be easier to assemble it because it will go into place. So we'll get that tacked up, and then we need to start talking about wastegates. So this is our Turbosmart Wastegate, and we want to get this as near as we can to the turbo inlet. I don't want to put it in the scroll, which the guys on 90 Car Mods did on the double unicorn build. I would rather have it coming off the two inlets just before the flange. This is our inlet port, this is the dump port. We're going to have the dump pipe, forget that coil's in the wrong place. The dump pipe's going to come around here and under here. So it makes sense to have it near the dump pipe and near the inlet pipes. And it would seem that if this sits about there, that's going to achieve that. The only thing I'm not sure about is whether that's actually going to go under the bonnet of the car. I think it will, I'll have to try it. But if that sits about there, then this pipe can come across here and join into the dump there. And that should be sweet, I think, with an install. So, time to make some more pipes for this. So looking at the back of the turbo, these are our two inlet pipes to the flange, and it would seem good if I can come off these two in a Y with the flange here and sit the wastegate there. So that's my plan, but I'm going to go and see if this will actually fit under the bonnet first. Well, we've had a look under the bonnet, and I think our wastegate will go here, but we're going to have to move this fuse box. But height wise we've got plenty of room. So I think if we move that fuse box, which is a bit of a wiring change, we'll bring it and put it down here somewhere at the cold end of the engine. That should be okay. This is the lid for the fuse box here, and I've laid a piece of wood over the top of this and closed the bonnet, so I know it'll take more. And if we look at this, that's about 8.5 inches, and it'll take an inch piece of wood, so the bonnet is at least 9.5 clear, and that gives us loads of room. So I think that's going to be the best place for that wastegate. We'll get rid of this plastic cover, consider that gone, and we'll move that fuse box, and our wastegate will go right here. And I think that should be okay. We just might have to make a heat shield for the cam belt and distributor here, because that's going to get a bit warm. But that's okay, we can do that. So here's our wastegate. Took a lot of thinking about where to put this. It's a bit of a tight fit. We're going to have to put a heat shield around the distributor here, but obviously that's not staying long term anyway. But we've got the wastegate. The exit can come out just over the top of the turbo, down here, and it'll go straight into the dump pipe here, and the dump pipe's going to come round here and under there. Now we managed to get this runner coming off here, dump pipe up here, and behind this is the link pipe to the other side. So I think we're all good on that. Now all we've got to do is put this on the car, make sure it all fits, and if it does, pull it all apart and do a lot of welding. Here's our final manifold fit check before we weld it all up properly, and boy is it tight. So we can see the log running down there. I'm going to have to take the edge of this fuse box off, we know that, because there's about a 3mm gap between there, between the dump and the fuse box, sorry, the wastegate, and when the engine moves around that will become 0. We've got a decent gap here, so that's okay. We'll move the plug leads, getting out the heat. Turbo flange here. The only thing I think we're going to have to move, having looked at this now, off the other engine is, I moved these water pipes and such like, and this flange I think is coming out too far. I think I need this space here to get the dump pipe out. I think we're going to have to bring this pipe across at an angle here, close to that belt. So what we'll do is we can weld up this entire manifold, but I won't weld this joint here or this one in case we have to move them. We can make that up afterwards, but that's okay, that's easy done. Right, we'll put the turbo on, just make sure everything does fit finally, and get welding. So here we are, turbo's mounted. I know I've got to move a few connectors and bits and pieces, that's okay, that's just for the oil pressure. So we've got a good gap under here, so when the engine's moving around that's okay, and we've got decent clearance to here. It's a little bit close to that fan, but I don't think the engine will come forwards and backwards. And we've got the compressor outlet lined up just beside the radiator here, so we should be able to go through just above those oil feed pipes out into this area of the car with our intercooler inlet. So I think based on that we're good to weld everything up except for this one flange here, because that's going to be where the dump pipe wants to go. Right, we're getting there. And the height of that wastegate's the same as the fuse box, so I know it'll all fit under the bonnet. No, looks like it's kind of in there. So here's our manifold tacked up. We've got one last job, which is these pipes that form the wastegate. I've tacked these in place to get them there, but what we need to do is we actually need to cut the holes into the mounting, into the mating tubes where these are going to go. So I've drawn around them in the scribe, so we'll break off the tacks here, cut all those holes in, and then we can weld it all back on. Right, yep, we'll get those cut off and get on with this. Looking good. So you can see our scribe lines here. So what we're going to do now is cut these two holes into those pipes. So I'll cut it with a grinder and then finish it off with a rotary burr, and then we can start welding all this up. Well, here we are. So you can see I've just used the die grinder and finished off these holes. So they're the two holes for our wastegate. We sit up here. That's it. We're all done. We're all cleaned up. I'm going to weld this to a big lump of box section to stop it warping, and spend the day TIG welding. Right, the first job we've got to do is, I've got this 100 by 100 box section, so I'm just going to tack our main mounting flange down to this on both sides. That'll keep it flat while we weld it, and once we've done that it's time to dig the TIG out over there and spend the day welding. Well, here's our right hand manifold in on the car, and everything looks correct. Now we've got a bit of clearance here, not that the engine's going to move because of the engine mount we made. I think we'll just cut that stud off to give it a bit more clearance. We've got a small gap there, I might have to make a heat shield for that. And if we look underneath, I think everything looks okay for the alternator. That looks good to me, and I think it is time to take that off and weld it up. Well, here's our right hand side manifold, finished, job done. There's only one last thing to do, and it's obviously all welded up and everything else. This is all looking good, fits nicely, but we have 4 oxygen sensors on the LS400 as standard, and the 2 primary ones, the 4-wire ones with the heaters here, have this funny 2-bolt fixing. They don't use the normal M18. So there's one of these for each bank, and then there's an M18 one, which are the secondary ones that go further down after the cats. So I need to put these in the manifolds. So I've marked up a hole in the manifold here, and I've made up these plates, and these plates will go like that. So what I'm going to do is put a hole in the manifold, poke the oxygen sensor through, weld the plate on, and then we can paint this, get the other one on. We're getting there. can see our manifold in with the oxygen sensor here. So that's all done. The standard wiring reaches because we've rerouted it. We'll tidy this up. And there you can see the manifold down there. Why is it red? Well, let's answer that question. The first thing is it's the highest temperature paint that the autoplace had. And the second reason is that by painting it red instead of black, it means that if there are any leaks in the manifold, they'll show up, because obviously it'll show up as a black sooty mark. So the idea of painting it red is so I can look for leaks after we've run the car. But there we are, this manifold's in. Let's finish the other side, and then this hot side is all plumbed up. Well, here's our left hand side manifold. It's all welded up now. I think it's going to be okay. I'm not 100% happy with it, but I'm going to try it. I might end up remaking it, and I might do it in stainless next time, but there we go. So that's it. It's all been done with the heat treated paint. We've got our oxygen sensor just downwind of the 4 inlets, so we've got that there on this side. Obviously the wastegate goes here, turbo here, and this is the cross pipe to the other side. So I think we're okay. Time to put this one on the car, finish the cross pipe across the front, and then all of our manifolds are done. Whew, what a project. You can see our manifold, an oxygen sensor in here. This is the connector for the oxygen sensor, so I'm going to have to lengthen one of these wires 6 inches to get that to fit, but this all goes okay. And manifold comes down, and you can see I've just laid the cross pipe in to make sure that's going to fit. That all looks okay. So I think it's time now to weld up the cross pipe, paint that, and hot side stuff is done. Well, here's the last piece of our exhaust, which is the link pipe that goes across the front. As I said earlier, we've put a flexi in this, so with the engine and manifolds moving with heat and all the rest of it, that it shouldn't break. So there's a little bit of movement in that, which was always good. If it was rigid, it would almost certainly crack. So we've got to install this, and then that is our hot manifolds finished. So that's it. In the background you can probably see our hot side manifolds. So they're all in, finished, done. So join us next time, and we're going to make the dump pipe, and then after that we'll make the dump pipe and exhaust in the next video, and the one after that we'll finish off the wiring and install the radiator, oil cooler, turbo oil drain and turbo oil feed, and then we are ready for some big skids.